All right, good evening, everyone. It's 6:06. I now call the meeting of the Ellensburg School District Board of Directors to order. Thank you, District Admin, and thank you, Matt, for filling in tonight to make this meeting possible in person and virtually. I do need to inform everyone present this meeting is being recorded. So let's please stand first and we'll do the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
I will now introduce the board members. We have Jonathan Henderson, Meg Ledlow, I'm Jason White. We have Mike Rowley, Tasha Woods, and we also have our Superintendent Ginger Haber. We are also joined by various admin who are also here. Next up, we have the consent agenda. Board, I would like to ask, I know that Leslie's been out. I reviewed the study session minutes and the regular meeting session, so I'd like to ask that we table the consent agenda for the next meeting's consent agenda for approval. There were some edits that were requested to be done, and I'd ask that we do that. So I think, Matt, we need a motion for that, right?
Yep.
Okay, so I entertain a motion to table table would be the right word. Table the consent agenda to the next meeting's consent agenda.
I move that we table the consent agenda.
All right, thank you. Tasha has moved that we table the consent agenda. Jonathan has seconded. With that, I will call a vote. All those in favor with an aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, consent agenda has been tabled to the next meeting. Thank you. All right, next up, we did move administration, superintendent's update first. And I think, Ginger, you have some staff here that we were going to try to start off. So take it away.
Yes, so we have Bo Snow here, our high school principal, and Haley Wojcik, who is our activities coordinator at the high school. And just appreciate them being here. The board had asked us to give you a review about our graduation requirements, what are our current one for the high school, and how does that maybe compare to what the state requirements are. Bo had also asked to talk about the stamp test that we currently have and a suggested change to policy 2409, which is about the putting of stamp requirements or extra awards or credits that students get by what do we need to be able to put that on the transcript. And there's a suggestion to change that Principal Snow would like to suggest. So, Bo, take it away.
Thank you, board, for the opportunity to be here tonight. I welcome the questions regarding post-secondary readiness, our graduation requirements, and the things with the state. Things are changing, obviously. Recently, in the last few years, the state has gone to 24 credits required to graduate. And so with our schedule, that creates some unique pieces. But Matt is pulling up a PowerPoint that I will go through, and then Haley Wojcik, our activities director, will go through a piece around the high school beyond plan, and then I will wrap up with some pieces about post-secondary, and then we'll gladly answer any questions that the board might have regarding this area. Go ahead, Matt.
Okay. Good to go.
Go ahead, you can advance to the slide. So graduation requirements go in this order, basically. Ellensburg is on the left, the state is on the right, content area. So in English, math, science, and social studies, you'll notice that Ellensburg requires exactly the same as what the state requires. Go ahead, Matt, you can move on to the next section. You'll see where we differ with the state. Ellensburg requires a family and consumer science class, which is a 0.5 credit, and the state does not. For health and fitness, which includes PE, Ellensburg requires 2.5 credits and the state requires 2. In CTE, we're the same. In the arts, we're the same. In world language, we're the same. But then in electives, the state says requires 4, but we are only able to require 3 because of the other requirements that you see listed above. So the total is 24 credits for Ellensburg, 24 credits at the state. But the areas of difference are all on this particular slide. So the family and consumer science, our health and fitness area, and then our electives. Go ahead now. So the family and consumer science piece, previously the school board had adopted this for a couple primary reasons, and this is back before my time, so I had to do a little homework to figure out, where this might have been initiated. The main reasons were to ensure students select EHS with fundamental living skills, to be independent citizens, things like how to apply for rent, how to manage a credit card, bank account, are all part of this curriculum. So it's basic living skills beyond school. This was also adopted to stabilize a CTE program approximately 15 to 20 years ago, by requiring a class that was applicable to all students, but then it would give a base CTE course for all of these students prior to graduation. And I got this information from tenured CTE staff and our CTE director. Health and fitness. The difference in this category stems from a desire in our district a while ago when we sent a large cohort of teachers to the national PE conference, and there was a large push in Ellensburg around physical fitness, and our board policy was adopted to reflect that, to increase the number required in PE beyond the 2.0, it's 2.5, and that includes a required 0.5 or 1 course in health, and then the rest of the course we filled in physical education. Okay. Because of those other 2 areas, we are only able to require 3 elective courses. One piece that's important to mention in here is that one of the functions of our schedule, we run a 6-period day, 6 periods, 4 years, 24 credits. 24 credits are required to graduate. So in there lies the rub with our schedule and what the state requires. And the new grad requirements leave 0 room for flexibility for our students in terms of if they have a struggle or they don't pass the class with their credit. That's where we run into some of the conflicts that we see with students earning credits. But the elective courses is different because of the additional PE credit and the additional family and consumer issues. Go ahead, Matt. The next piece that I wanted to address with the board is stamp testing and application of credit. As Ginger mentioned, in policy and procedure 2409, it currently requires a parent signature for application of credits to a high school diploma or to a high school transcript. Excuse me. And the reason why I'm asking the board to consider stamp testing in a separate realm is the other elements that comes into play are classes at the middle school, such as like algebra and other courses that carry a grade that come with them. And so the reason for the parent signature in the past has always been acknowledgement of, if my student got C in algebra and they transfer that to the high school, that C is going to now be on their high school transcript forever. And so the state had written laws and the board had adopted policies that reflected communication between the school and the parents regarding the application of those courses. Stamp testing is different. And the reason that stamp testing is different is that stamp testing.
Dumb question, what is stamp testing?
So stamp testing is for our multilingual students, primarily in Ellensburg. It's students that test in Spanish language, and if they can show proficiency in writing, reading, and speaking and listening, they are eligible for credit based upon that bilingual status. If students are able to pass the stamp test at graduation, they receive a special cord and they receive special recognition at our scholarship night. So the testing is different because there is no grade attached. that if you pass the stamp test, it does not come with a letter grade to be applied to a transcript. It comes as like a milestone marker where they show stamp test on the transcript as a pass mark or milestone. And the reason why we would like to consider being able to apply that without parent consent is that we currently have roughly 50 students that have passed the stamp test. And of our 50 students in the 9th grade class coming in, and then 16 students still in the high school that have not turned in their form to get the credit that they've already earned. And a lot of times it's a language barrier or there are other issues, and awarding these credits are credits these students have already earned, and we want to make sure that they get applied to the transcript. And there's no negative side to passing the stamp test. If you pass the stamp test, it is a high school credit that can be applied to your diploma to help towards graduation. And there's no ding to GPA, there's no harm to the GPA for the student or for the family. And it's simply, we felt that it was, in the sake of equity, it was important to bring it to the board's attention so that we can get every student that is able to do that. It's not the students that are going through our courses that pass the stamp test that we're having a hard time getting the forms back. It's the native Spanish speakers that are able to do it, that are bilingual, that we're having a hard time getting that back, and they deserve the credit. And so we just want to encourage the board to consider changing that policy to be able to apply the credit without the parent signature, just for the stamp test, not for the other courses.
So while I was looking at that policy, and I think the policy in itself supports it, but what I was looking at is under the policy, there's a policy app or a form that goes with it. So what I'm
That's
thinking is what I hear you asking for would be keeping that form in place for those other types of opportunities, like the math classes, but to just kind of create a separate form maybe that says stamp on it that would be specific for that test. And that would be the way to get that on the transcript without have it on there, but not be required, for parent, but have a separate form for the stamp. I think that's what you're asking for. Is that
correct? Yeah, the form that Ginger's referring to is 2409F, and we would ask the board to consider amending or changing the policy to include an additional form that would be specific to the stamp test to award credit upon successful passage of that assessment. And obviously, it's not something the board can determine tonight, but just encourage future consideration regarding that.
So I would suggest we put 2409 on the agenda for next time, and we can take a look at it. I think the policy itself supports that process. It's just I think that changing that form, but you guys can look at it and see what we can have a discussion about it at the study session.
Go ahead, Matt.
Before you move, can I ask one question? I think that I'm still confused about. So are we suggesting that the stamp testing of a student was to pass it, that they would get, because there's those 2 credits for foreign language, are we saying that that would count as one of those, or does that just not, is it selective credit, or how are we wanting to code that?
So we would have to work that out with the student's counselor. It's different for every student. For example, some students don't pass the test until they're a senior, so it goes on as an elective. For other students that pass it in middle school, it can be applied in a different way. And so there is no one size fits all answer for that, because it can be applied differently for students. And so it could be applied as a proof of a world language credit for a student, but it also could end up being an elective credit for a student that has taken 4 years of Spanish just to be able to pass the test. So it depends on, and that's also partly why it's so important to me to get that for students that are passing it in 8th grade, to get that credit so that they can apply early in their high school career and know that, help them with earning those 24 credits. I hope that helps.
Yeah, that totally answers it. And I think in my mind, I'm thinking of our Spanish native speakers. So this would be great moving forward if we can help our Spanish speaking families understand that that's an option early in middle school, so that they can potentially earn those credits early on, because it's really an additional skill set that they have that don't levels, that other are just our English speakers don't have. So that's really exciting to see. So yeah, looking forward to more of this. So thank you.
And when you're referring to this test, does this only work in Spanish or in other languages?
Currently, the test that I'm aware of in Ellensburg, we've only administered the test in Spanish. I do know, there are other options, but it has not been something that the test, we purchased the test for students to take, and they take the assessment. And so the test that we have purchased in Ellensburg have only been Spanish thus far. So on the screen, you can see that there are waivers for some of the credits that we require in Ellensburg. For the areas we identified, students have the opportunity to waive the requirements if they meet certain criteria. For example, family and consumer science can be waived because it's different than the state requirements. There's a policy or there's a piece of a WAC that says that we have to provide a waiver opportunity if we require different than what the state requires. So for example, family and consumer science and the additional PE credits that we require in Ellensburg, there are waivers available to students if they meet certain criteria. So for example, if they maintain a full schedule, but they were not able to take all of the PE classes, let's say, to earn those credits, there are ways that they can waive those PE credits if they have done other things like participated in athletics or marching. There are ways to earn that, to get that PE credit if they maintain a full schedule. Or if these extra courses would have prevented them from continuing in something such as band, choir, CTE pathway, or running start. For example, family and consumer science, a lot of times if a kid is a running start student, it's typically a junior course. If a student chooses to go to running start full time and they're taking a full time running start schedule, it becomes very difficult to fit that into their schedule. And so a lot of times those students in that circumstance, they waive the family and consumer course, which requires parent signature and acknowledgement that they're not taking that course. But there are ways to waive our unique pieces to the Ellensburg requirements. This takes us to the part, you'll notice the colorful difference, break, and scheme of the PowerPoint, because this is where Haley takes over. She's far more colorful than I am, so here's Haley.
Sorry, can I ask quick questions? Because I know Haley's gonna have awesome things too, and I don't want, I'll get lost in my things that I wrote. Is that okay?
Absolutely.
And there, it's like really bad enough thinking that I did here. Is our 6-period day the norm for our region? Do other high schools have a different period schedule?
It is the, I would say it's the traditional schedule, but there are schools in our region like Kittitas, Sela have gone away from the 6-period day when I think it was 5 or 6 years ago, the state had forecasted that there might, the 24 credit might be on the horizon. The State Board of Education put together work groups and committees, and we all went and we all participated. The reasons why some districts were able to adjust and change earlier, a lot of it has to do with finances and the ability to staff buildings in different ways. To do trimesters or to do block schedules is more expensive than to do a 6-period day. And so when we proposed a number of years ago to at the time Superintendent Ferris, it was not something that the district could afford to do to up the number of staff it would take to change. But yes, there are schools in the Yakima Valley that are still on a 6-period day. There are schools on the west side that are still on a 6-period day. It is becoming less and less common though, because of the challenge that you see where the math works against the students. 6 periods, 4 years, creates a unique challenge if anybody stumbles along the way. And so, there are lots of schools that have gone to the blocks. Mr. Ellensburg, who was the principal prior, went to the Tri-Cities, that they're doing some unique things in some of the Tri-City schools that are away from the 6-period day, but it's still, you'll see it in every region, the 6-period day, because it was the standard go-to for education for 30 years prior to these recent changes.
Understandable. And I liked your words too, flexible and adaptive, because when we're looking at students now, is our high school experience flexible and adaptive for our students? Are they the ones at the center and we're providing that opportunity? And so that's why the 6 period day struck me, like we're holding them, it seems to be at a disadvantage mathematically with that 6 period day. Opening up space for more electives. Oh, so I'm just gonna read my notes out loud. Looking at Ellensburg having those additional requirements in gym with the family consumer sciences, that is taking away the adaptivity for our students. That's taking away their flexibility. So is there room for us to have that conversation of changing our high school requirements to more match the state to allow for flexibility for our families and students?
I would say everything's open for discussion. I mean, those were created in a time where the grad requirements were 22 or less by the state of Washington. And so Ellensburg was not going so far out on a limb per se as how it looks now. The optics, like we're playing Monday morning quarterback on a decision that was made by the board 15 years ago to say, you know, it's not flexible. It was flexible at the time, and it was part of what Ellensburg was about, you know, physical fitness and were higher standards than the norm. Now the norm is the max that we can earn in Ellensburg because of our current schedule. And so I would say that evaluating our requirements is overdue, and that we do need to look at ways to address that going forward.
And thank you, I should have phrased my question better because it really is, do you think that it would serve our students here? If you're the principal, you're a teacher, you're assistant principal, you know our school, you know our students and families. Do you think that having those discussions, that now is the time to have those discussions to bring more flexibility in?
Absolutely. I mean, I think that it's something that we have to do within the, you know, if not later this year, early next year or over the summer, because we will have to address the issue at some point, unless the state decides to change the requirements again. We will have to address just so that we're offering, I mean, you mentioned, you know, if a student is locked into their schedule because they're either, you know, they're on an IEP or they're a multilingual student or they have other factors involved, they really don't have opportunities for electives or pathways like they used to. And by having, or if they're a band choir student, you know, your opportunities to branch out and take these other pathway courses that we're creating and promoting and we love to offer our students, it's a limiting factor to meet all the grad requirements. And so, yes, I would be a huge advocate of looking at the way we approach the grad recs and the way that we look at them in Ellensburg. I think that's the next thing on the horizon, is to figure out how to do that better.
Thank you.
Now that's the colorful lady.
All right, high school and beyond plan. Okay, so high school and beyond plan, what is it? High school and beyond plan is obviously a graduation requirement for students in the state of Washington. For all intents and purposes, it is a collection of 4 years worth of career exploration, self-assessment, self-reflection, and really trying to build a pathway for students. What's my next step? What's the step in high school? And then an easy transition to whatever is beyond high school. This is our new program. March of 2020 was when we made the decision to roll this out. Well, we purchased it, right? Like in 2020, may ring a bell as far as timing. So it has taken really, we worked on it last year, trying to get it to kids, and there's been a huge push this year to really ensure that all kids at the high school are using this program. But it's really like, it's a visual collection of the work that they are doing over 4 years to figure out what they want to do when they leave high school. Just from this screen, there's self-assessments. So those are things related to their skills, their interests, their preferences. There's career research. They can look up different careers based on those skills assessments. They can update it each year. There's, 4 times to take the assessments conveniently with the 4 years of high school. There's programs, schools, goals, and they really have the opportunity. It's a tool for them to be able to look at what are my options. It's a tool, I think, that's going to be really powerful for us moving forward to have this information on each student. For the first time ever, like, we're gonna have data on kids to have a conversation in an advisory class to say, hey, I see that you're interested in medicine. Are you taking chemistry? Have you considered anatomy? I see that you're talking about accounting. Do you know that there's a business pathway? Like, to really talk to them about what they're wanting to do. And in the same sense, I know that you've told me 17 times you don't want to go to college, but you're telling me you're going to be an accountant. Do you know what that means? Like, let's talk about it. And whatever the results of those conversations are okay. Like, there's a ton of options out there, but to have the chance to really talk to each kid about what they're doing, it's a really cool tool to finally, to have this in one location, because when I started, it was not in one location. And so this is essentially what it is and what we are working on with each student. All right, so what's included? They are taking interest in skills and preferences surveys. Those are things from I would rather write a novel than look at earthquakes to, in a cabinet is a smiley face, a moderate face, or a frowny face. And it's very interactive. It's pretty, technology. They know how to click buttons and love clicking buttons, and there's pictures. It's very user friendly. Career research, they can look at their careers and related careers, programs. So I want to be an accountant, or schools. I want to go to Central. I want to go to where, wherever they're looking at. The reality check kind of helps. What are my future plans? What's the lifestyle I want, right? We talk a lot about education and school, but what do you see yourself, like, do you want to live in a big city? Do you know how much it costs to live in a big city and, a mansion? Are you making enough money to do those things? We talk about financial aid information, and there's, resources for them to continue that research on their own. They build a resume. We look at short and long-term education and career goals. They complete a job shadow, which all of these are built into the program, and the program meets the state requirements for high school and beyond plan. The job shadow is a local, that's an addition. We've added that to the requirements. And that's typically completed through that family and consumer class or in their junior and senior years. We typically require community service. COVID has made that slightly challenging. And so currently those requirements are suspended. It is not required to have 10 hours of service to graduate this year because those opportunities aren't equitable to everyone. Not all of our families can really accomplish that. And then the confirmed post-high school plan is really the signature on the dotted line. Here's what I'm doing. It's uploading your letter of acceptance, your work, resume, letter from your employer, or military paperwork, that type of stuff. Next.
Yeah. It's lost.
Okay.
While it's frozen, can I ask you a
For
question?
sure, absolutely.
So the student interest, skills, preference surveys, and career assessments. You may not know, and that's okay, I can find out later. Do you happen to know what we use at the high school? Like, do we use MBTI? Do we use, sorry, if I'm throwing, it's okay if you don't know.
I don't know what the specific,
Okay,
there's 3, I have the, what the kids see.
okay,
You may know when you look at it.
right, I know this is stuff I dig into. The other question I just have is, do you know when those are given? Is it typically, like, is there a specific, when those assessments are given, like whether it's freshmen, juniors, sophomores?
So we're asking
Sort of
each grade
schedule.
level to complete them.
Okay.
As freshmen, they're doing it as part of their career choices class. So they're getting that one-on-one, you know, a teacher working with them, helping them get logged in, helping them get access, like, this is where you're going, this is what it looks like, and this is what we're doing. From then on, so they're 10th, 11th, 12th, they're doing it independently through advisory CCR. And there's, again, refresher instruction on that, but it's that required career choices, a required class that we're asking them, you know, here's the building blocks, and then they're working on it independently.
Thank you.
So the interest, the 3 surveys they take, preferences, so again, that's, I'd rather do this or that. It generates for them the categories. You have the ability to click on, if you're humanitarian or scientific, you can kind of learn more about yourself and what that means. And there are tabs kind of at the top for them. There's a lot of layers within the program. And it really, you know, it's kind of one of those things that kids, I think, initially are like, why? And then as they do it and they get the chance to talk about themselves and learn about themselves, they actually find it to be far better than they thought it was going to be. And I think that there's really, you know, we've been working on trying to get this out for 2 years, right? So like for those seniors, my own seniors, it's like, this is the 3rd program and why are we doing, you know? But I think for those freshmen and sophomores, there's really, like, the value of this is gonna be substantial, and they're gonna feel it as we move into scheduling their classes. And they're gonna see it as we are able to help them find their pathways and connect them to the classes and the opportunities that they are interested in. So it's a work in progress, but it's definitely an improvement. So the interest, you know, kind of, again, it gives you different, this is your main category, here's kind of a sub, you know, some sub interests. And then the skills, you know, career clusters based on what you say you like to do. Here's where, what we think you might be good at. So when they've completed those, it generates a list of careers that then they can see, this matches your skills, your interests, and your preferences, or this only matches a couple of them. And when they say they're going to be a doctor and that's not at all on it, you can look at that and say, okay, what are skills I need to develop? What are things I need to work on? So it's got some really, again, the more you dig into it, I think the cooler, you know, that's probably not the word kids, but it's got some really neat features. So
I had a quick question.
Yeah.
With the preferences, with the reality check, do students switch a lot? And what were the reality check criteria or questions? Because I don't want to like discourage anyone's dreams or.
for sure. So they're starting this as freshmen, and there's already been kids, right, that like, hey, I took a class that I didn't realize I was going to like, or I don't like what I thought I liked. And so it's not, in no way are we getting them on like a narrow pathway that's only this direction, but it's definitely a starting point, I think, for conversation. one, we just don't have we don't have the infrastructure in the building to really put a kid, you're on this path and that's the end of the conversation. And they're going to continue to be exposed to a lot of opportunity. Is that answering kind of?
A little bit,
Okay.
I just want more, I just trying to understand more about the reality check, what goes into that, or like.
And we'll get
I'm
to
gonna focus
the,
on,
yeah.
like wages or whatever. So,
So, for sure, and I'm gonna cover that one specific and hopefully it helps. Okay, so when they finish those surveys, it populates a list of careers. They have the opportunity to select different careers. They put the little heart, saves that career for them, and then they can go back to their portfolio and look at it. Each career gives them, here's the tasks and the job duties. Across the top there, you see the different, what kind of training, wages, employment, other things to know, resources if this is a career you're interested in. On the side, on the right, it also gives related careers, and that's where, sometimes maybe accounting isn't going to be for me, but bookkeeping or office manager, it populates a list of careers with similar traits or need, similar jobs, and it gives them the opportunity to kind of investigate those without having to bounce around and search all over the place. And again, so then under programs, it's really similar, but again, gives you sort of an overview of what kind of things you need to be considering, what are you taking, where can you get, where can you get an education, where can you get the training you need, and again, what are related programs. When you dive into this and realize this isn't for me, what other options are out there to look at. All right, so the reality check, so this is sort of what it looks like. It's got location, and then it has expenses, so location, it's here for the state of Washington, so it's, Yakima, Wenatchee, the Seattle area, Tacoma, the main cities are there. Kids who aren't going to live in the state of Washington, we would encourage, pick something similar, right? And then it goes through what kind of housing, and the price of housing changes based on the location you pick. And then on the left-hand side, you'll see food, transportation, clothing, health insurance, entertainment, some different things for them to think about as far as what it takes to live. And it's always eye-opening. This is my daughter's plan, and she's like, gosh, I'm expensive. Yes, you are, love. But it's good for them to understand how much it really takes to survive on your own in the real world. And what's the lifestyle that you want to live. The next slide talks about, I didn't put it in, but the next one really talks about education in that reality check, and how much time am I willing to spend on education beyond high school. And it gives them, I'm ready to hit the workforce now, 2-year, or a program, a technical program, to the 8-year, 10-year master's, doctorate type programs. And really then at the end, it gives them, based on those thoughts, there's some more careers to consider. There's some more things to look at. So, and each year as they do that, if they recognize, I didn't think I wanted to go to college, but now I do, when they check that box, it's going to populate a new list of careers or options for them. This is the educational goals and career goals. Again, I think that this is mostly one to help them focus, right? Like a short-term goal. What am I doing in school this year? What am I thinking for the future? Some goal setting, good practice in general. It's also fun to look back and go, that's what I wanted to do in my, ninth grade year. Okay. But really just helping them think about what's my next step, right? Like eat the elephant one bite at a time. So what's my next step? Resume in that career choices class, they're building a resume. They are able to add that file there at the bottom. And then each year, it's really like it's easy to update, it's easy to fix it up. And then as they graduate, they've got really a document that's ready for them to head out into the world. All right, so we kind of talked about this. It's that career choices class of ninth graders. And then it's really a monthly CCR assignment for them. I've gotten wiser as I've gotten older and really breaking it into pieces, requiring it as part of their advisory work each month. It's helping them get it done. May not have 800 of them to look at it once. And it's really, they're getting the pieces that's manageable with the workload they have in addition to everything else going on. It is also accessible to Running Start students. We have all of the Running Start kids in their own advisory class. It's not credit bearing, but they have access to all the same materials. And then before they graduate, I check each of them to make sure that we're on track. So this is where you would find their plan. This is 12th grade CCR at the top of the page. In the pink folder, there's the high school and beyond plan for first semester. It's all located there. If you're a do it all at once type, it's also broken out. You'll see on October, we're doing the requirements, reviewing those, and then taking the surveys. In November, we're doing the career research part and the assignment. And this is where parents are hopefully able to see it as well using the Schoology system. So we've also got this in the dog dish, which is posted in Schoology on the website, on the EHS Facebook page, on the senior Facebook page, because seniors are my, we're really chasing them for that graduation component. And then we're directly emailing it to students and families fairly regularly as well. And then this is the requirements and how kids can double check that they're on track. If they're not, getting them into the system is probably like the most challenging part. And so it's really just reviewing what they need to do. And within that, those links take you to a charming video of yours truly explaining and doing the step-by-step of where to go to finish those, which we don't need to do. But they're there. Any questions, high school and beyond plan?
Yeah, I had a question about teacher-ready jobs, because I saw the only more traditional that was an
Right.
example. But, a lot of jobs don't exist now. There's a lot of emerging jobs, and I didn't see much about like searching, exploring that.
Within the program, there are there's search functions. I know that there are like specific, future.
Emerging fields.
Yeah, again, this is my daughter's work, and so I probably am a little limited. I suppose I could do that, but yeah, there's definitely, and the program doesn't offer every job, right? And I have run into some kids that have, I'm like, what?
Social media manager or something,
Yeah, And, you know, if there's something specific that they know that we're definitely taking, you can upload files and they can continue to do their research and do the work. You know, this program is hard for those kids that want to go right to a job. You know, like I don't know what my education goal is in 5 years. And so we really talk about at every stage of life, you're gonna have to try to better yourself, right? Like, you're always trying to improve. So what does that look like at your job? What does it look like? So it's not perfect in the, you know, it's definitely not amazing for every kid, but it's definitely, it's casting a wider net, I think. We try to help those ones who are maybe don't fit exactly.
Right, and then kind of answer my earlier question, I was worried like the Seattle example, putting in, you know, I want to live in Seattle, but I love art. And I'm like, how am I gonna afford to actually, I just was making sure that,
Right.
I was worried about like steering only high paying careers.
Right, yeah. And I mean, I have definitely, you know, I mean, I have my own advisory class and I have kids of all, you know, some are totally career, totally financial focus. Some are like, hey, I'm willing to have a roommate to make, you know, but it's lended itself to the opportunity to talk about it. And I think that that's, it's been nice to be able to have that, you know, again, my poor children, they're so excited to graduate, so they start being examples. But they've recognized in 4 years, like, hey, living closer to home and being able to, you know, mooch off of mom, maybe not so good after all, right? You know, but we've had the chance to talk about it. So I think that that's part of, you know, valuable part of it.
Just to clarify, this starts at 9th grade.
Yeah, yes, we are starting in 9th
And
grade.
then,
And last year's freshmen were the first class that we
Right.
really start like
okay,
with this program, doing this, yes.
is it as much time as a freshman as it is as a senior, or is it kind of build as you
I think
get towards the end?
that for the freshmen, it's probably the most time consuming because they are building that resume. They're making, I mean, to be doing it right, they're really putting a lot of work in at the front end, right? And it's a high school and beyond plan. Like it's that, here's kind of what I think I'm interested in. And we can all look at that now and we can say, hey, okay, you know, where are you going? What classes can we steer you towards? And so I do think that probably it is more work for a freshman. They're also getting the time in a class to work on it and we're working on it with them. I don't think it's as much because it's going to be a refresher, right? Like it's going to be retaking those quizzes. It's going to be redoing the reality check. Am I still on track with the goals I want to have? Is my resume up to date? What class did I take that I can add to it? So I think yet to be determined because of kind of where we are, but I think it's gonna be front heavy that freshman year, and I think it's gonna take less time as they get older.
So I have so many, and my notes are so jumbled, so I apologize. As, you don't have to answer this, but as a mom and as advisory, whatever your formal role title is, and as principal, what rooms for improvement do you see with our high school improvement plan? Do you see that do you think that there's anything, if you could wave a magic wand and a high school beyond plan could be whatever you want it to be, would you make any changes to our current high school beyond plan?
I would definitely make it more hands-on. I think that I would make it more, I mean, like I come from the CTE realm, right? Like that hands-on learning, that like being invested. I would love to see every kid have to sit down and do a job interview before with a community member. I would love to see every kid have to present their high school and beyond plan in a format that's like stand up and deliver and talk about it. Like those are job skills, those are life skills that we should help them. And I think talking about yourself and your future plans is a good, like, it's easy money, right? Like, you can do that. So I would like to see it be, I think, more of those types of like real job, like pick out the resume. I think that's a good start. But I think sitting down and really talking with potential employers, with people in the community about, here's where I was as a freshman, look at my goals. Here's where I'm at as a senior. Here's my best work, right? I would like to see us put more of that type of into it. So I think that, again, I think the tools that the district has given us is definitely helping. I think, the program is nice. Prior to this program, it was like, hey, you gotta go to this website for this, interest survey and print it out and you connect it. So like, I'm grateful for the tools we have now. And I'm curious to see how it works out, right? Like this is genuinely the first time we're gonna have the kind of information accessible to make a master schedule, to do.
Right, I think what you're referring to is this is our first year with the software that puts us in compliance with the state. The state required us in 2019, 2020 to have that software.
Yes.
So that's now with fidelity across the state that all the schools have that software. So I saw both of that.
Well,
Oh, he's just. I like that. Sorry, I'm trying to put these in order. So when do we start talking to students about this high school and beyond plan, and what artifacts do we give students or parents and guardians?
I know the original intent was it was being implemented in 8th grade. I do not know the status of that, and I know that we're, I don't know where they're at when they enter career choices as 9th graders, if they're doing it. As far as artifacts for parents, there's probably not any. They can certainly view the work that they're doing as far as, it's a good conversation piece. There's not many artifacts outside of that program right now. And so the majority of that would be located in the school data system. Here's what I'm doing. Here's what my interest surveys are. Here's the results of that. No, so I don't know if I taught career choices in the virtual academy last year. So there was not like a printed resume, floating around and available.
Sorry, I keep doing it. Sorry.
But a handheld resume is certainly something we can be getting to students, and as far as
When the resume sort of is the least of my concerns, like I have a 15-year-old freshman, so I would also like to write his resume because it'd be the shortest resume I would have ever had to write. Like I've got that one under control. I don't like having to rewrite my resume. So on this pathway, this high school and beyond plan, is there a formal way that our school or our system has come up with that we knowingly and intentionally invite families or guardians into this conversation with students?
I think it's coming. And I think it's coming as part of what we're doing when we start talking about registration for classes into, with those spring conferences, with it's not there yet.
Okay.
But I think it's part of where I see us go, it's still kind of trying to play catch up, right? Like we're trying to get every kid in here doing this. And so I think that absolutely is the next step. Part of spring conferences is what classes do you want to take? Why do you want to take them? Well, here's what I've been doing. Here's what and that has been part of what we've done in the past prior to COVID. And I think it's getting it back as part of it. But it's not there right now for what we've done so far.
Do students get credit for their high school beyond plan?
It is part of, so they get graduate, they get to graduate, they have to have it for graduation. It is built in as their CCR, not for freshmen because they're doing it in class, so it's redundant. But for 10th, 11th, and 12th graders, they are earning credit as they complete each of those components. So the 0.25 credit for advisory, which is an elective credit, it's not a graduation requirement, but they are earning credit as
Sorry, so 0.25 advisory credit counts as part of the 3 electives that we offer our students.
it's an
Right,
addition.
is that, like,
It's an
so
addition.
all
to
students
those.
have 3 elective credits to take. But they also get this 0.25 credits. The 0.25 doesn't eat out of their 3 available. Okay, that's just like.
It's bonus credit. So it
Bonus
fills, I
credit.
mean, it fills a gap potentially for a kid who's missing a credit. If they're completing them.
Do you think that we need to strengthen our high school and beyond plan? Do you think that there's revisions or anything that we need to do? Do you foresee anything like that? Because I have concerns about our high school and beyond plan and just hearing how people are interacting. And it was great. I actually watched your videos. You have a really good voice on video on that. And a lot of my friends said, why did I get this email from the high school? They don't do this till they're junior and senior. They had 0 idea that this was supposed to happen in 8th grade and 7th grade. And they didn't know that they had to have a resume to go to. And these were parents and juniors and seniors too that didn't know this. So that was a concern because what we're hearing from the legislature loves the high school and beyond plan, and they're going to start putting more stipulations into it. So I'm just wondering, and it's really just an ask, like, you guys are in the high school, like, you know the families, you guys know the students, you know that best. Do you think that there's room for conversation about the high school and beyond plan and how we are utilizing it in Ellensburg?
For sure.
Like an honest conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, absolutely. And I don't think there's, I mean, again, as a parent of 2 seniors, there are some things on there that okay, right, but it's what's required, it's what we're doing. I think that there's absolutely ways we can make it better, and I will certainly open to suggestions from other people as to what they see as necessary. So I also think being realistic with what kids, right, like you have to, kids see it as one more thing, and so how we're packaging it, how we're promoting it, you know, I think that this, getting it into that freshman class is going to help them recognize how valuable this tool really is. And I think we're fighting, I mean, I'm fighting seniors, right? Like, and there's a tension there that I think once we get over the hump, like there's good stuff, like we're doing good stuff. We just haven't had enough time for it to do what it needs to. So yes, I am totally open to suggestions, and I have thoughts and concerns and ideas. And I'm sure every parent does, and you know, that's why we're all here, because we want to see kids do well in the movie. Like that's the goal. And I don't think, I certainly don't have ownership of, you know, like I'm not the sole keeper of that. So I'm happy to have those discussions. I also think like, we've got good stuff in the works. It just hasn't had time to take cups in. We just haven't got the coffee out yet. And so I think it's a weird spot, right? Like on top of pandemic and other stuff. So yeah.
You know, it's an exciting program. Sorry, it's an exciting program, and the high school and beyond plan has been around for a while. But the 2019-2020 compliance with the new thing is new. The pandemic has thrown everything into complete disarray, and I think that a requirement, right? You can say this for one of the requirements coming from the legislature, but this one is it really does fit in really well with our board ends. And when the high school student looks at you and says, "Why am I doing algebra?" You're like, "Because you're going to be an adult someday. We want you to be an engaged citizen. We would like you to think." The high school and beyond plan is one of those tools to connect. What you're doing at 15 will affect what you're doing when you're 22, 25. So I think that I like that the high school beyond plan exists. It's just interesting watching the legislature's doing, what the state board is doing, and then where are we sitting in Ellensburg and where are we in that process?
And how do you reach, I mean, and how do you reach every, you know, again, like, there are some kids who haven't been in the building for a year, and how do you reach them, and how do you know, so yeah, it's definitely, it has not been a process that's just smooth and easy and, you know, it's gold star and whatnot, like, it definitely, there's been work.
I think two things that we're working on with it too, and I appreciate Haley and putting, put effort in that, get it started and get it going, and Bo, I know we've had conversations too. We want to keep working on how we get our parents more involved in the conversations around the career beyond plan, as well as it's not just something that gets done in advisory, right? This is a tool that can be used across all subject matter, where it just becomes an integral part of having that career in college and career and post-secondary awareness across all of the content areas in our school, so that everybody's thinking about that and looking for those opportunities. And I think as we get more familiar with the high school and beyond plan itself, the computer program, how it works, getting faculty involved with that, it'll really become a school-wide effort around post-secondary readiness and high school and beyond plan. And this will just be a tool that people can use to help foster that. I mean, that's the long range goal. It's not one person or two people's job. It's all of our jobs to really raise that post-secondary awareness. And I think this tool, as we start to use it more, will become really effective in that way. Thank you.
I'm back, but I'll address Tasha's question from my perspective first. I mean, certainly the high school beyond plan fits with the previous discussion around grad requirements and changes just in the overall system. The high school beyond plan was intended to start in middle school, but our middle school, like logistics of uploading and starting in school data solutions, didn't happen when it initially was put in. So they weren't able to start it when we acquired the program. And so there are things that the nature of how we choose to do those things, there's inherent barriers. The other part that comes up with the high school beyond plan, and I think that we used to do the senior project, where it was an actual, seniors did a whole presentation required for every senior to graduate as an Ellensburg only requirement. And we chose to go away from that within the last 5 or 6 years. Right about the same time, the high school and beyond plan came back into effect from this legislature. So we had a mechanism in place that was the full-blown sit down with a room full of people and present your material. It was different than the high school beyond plan, but it's not something that Ellensburg has never seen before. And so I would love to have conversations about how to bring that style of approach back. But I also think that there's a give and a take. If we put this in somewhere in the school day, there's a piece that we have to evaluate at where does it go, because we only have 6 periods in a day currently. We have all of the grad requirements. And where do you put, and that's one of the honest struggles about the high school beyond plan, is it has been wedged into advisory. In all honesty, where we were able to designate time to it. And if we change it, like Ginger was saying, we have to change the approach into other courses. And so that's the next step. That's the next piece, along with the parent element. And I mean, the information is there. I think the question is like, how do we, mid-pandemic, our questions were, and you'll see it in some of these things, how do you do a parent night when you're not supposed to have a parent night? Or how do you do an in-person thing to introduce people to things? And instead what we did was we made videos, but then videos aren't always as, they're not always received by people the same, and it's not quite the same as come in and listen to them. So we have great, solid ideas. It's just that combined with COVID and some of the unique features with that, you'll see some of the bumps that we've occurred. On the screen, you'll see some of the pieces that Ginger asked to talk or asked questions about regarding preparing for post-secondary. And I know that this has kind of gone on long, so I'm just going to go briefly, and I would love to come back in the spring with my counseling team, and we can give you a full-blown, in-depth, that they know a lot more about each one of these elements than I do. But So FAFSA information, you can see on the screen, there are lots of announcements that go both on the website, but also daily announcements for students. Starting in October when the FAFSA is available, there's a process overview and items needing that goes out digitally to every parent in the high school in English and Spanish in September. There's a follow-up one that goes out again in October. Then there's a completion event. We've done them Zoom the last 2 years because of COVID, but in the previous to that, the FAFSA nights were actual in-person nights in the high school where people came and had questions answered with folks from Central. One of the cool things about being where we are is we have that resource nearby. This year was November 2nd for the in English, and then October 20th was the Spanish. And it was advertised website, parent newsletter, and emails that went out to all the addresses we have on file in our system. And then there was another completion event later in November in both English and Spanish. Go ahead. In addition to the things that they see in the school data solutions, senior advisory, there's counselor meetings, and in those meetings, these are the topics that are covered in depth. Application deadlines, SAT, ACT dates, college search tools, community and technical colleges, and then career exploration tools, occupational outlook handbook, and career bridges. But I will also say the #1 way that post-secondary planning happens is counselor to student, counselor to parent, 3 counselors, full-time job plus. This is what they do all the time. And a lot of their energy is working with juniors and seniors on this particular piece. And that you can't really articulate that on a slide, but that's what, I mean, that's the large part of those dialogues occurs that way. Go ahead, Matt. Scholarship information. We're fortunate that we have Michael Johansson in our district, who's the scholarship guru. He knows and is plugged into scholarships all across the country, and he's able to update on our virtual scholarship fair. And there's a link that's still accessible posted there. There's resources are shared at that senior meeting. We have a board in the Commons that he updates weekly with new scholarships that rotate every week. He has a file, it's deep, of things that he rotates through every week throughout the year. These are the due dates that are coming. These are when they're going to go. He has it down to a really, really good system. He updates the EHS Facebook page for scholarships. He has that, it's active and it's constantly putting out new scholarships for kids to pursue. That Mike McCloskey runs the Ed Foundation. And then there's the Unified Scholarship application, which is our local unified scholarships. There's one date that's communicated out to all students as well. So on those last few pieces, like I said, I will set up a time with Ginger to bring counseling team in the spring after we register. Then they can provide far more detail about that specific post.
Thank you. Board, any other questions? Again, thank you both for that. That was very informative. And I think board, especially with your willingness to come back, I think this is a good time to think about questions you might have for the future, clarifying. And I really appreciate what you have achieved with COVID. I mean, you think about all the limitations of I know that best practices a lot in these areas rely on very engaging and interactive sort of events. And that's difficult. That has been very difficult to do with COVID. So, so we're excited to continue to see where this goes. So thank you for your time. And we're excited to continue to kind of go down this route and find out more about how we can move forward. So I'm excited. I know the one thing, and it's not a question, I was thinking about innovative jobs, and I think Jonathan was kind of talking about that, where in higher ed, we're always looking at hold it up, the occupational outlook handbook, and we're talking to students about what are the future jobs, what are the jobs that are really going to be high demand, and then matching those up with their interests too. So I think there's just so many things that we can keep moving forward to. So thanks for sharing what you're doing. This is great.
Sorry, this is off topic. It's okay, it's off topic. Just while Haley's here, because you don't come all the time, and I know that you have such a strong hand in all those events at the high school, homecoming, graduation, all of those real touch points, memory things, and you have done an extraordinary job of keeping those continuing all through COVID, and even before it was extraordinary, but everything that you did during COVID, it was really, really remarkable.
What we have like 400 testings that we did for kids to get into homecoming. I mean, that was pretty incredible. You guys pulled that off.
It was so fun. Like it was just, yeah, it was fun. So, thank you.
Awesome. All right, thank you. Oh, Mike.
I just wanted to say, I think this is really interesting, and boy, do I wish there had been a high school and beyond plan requirement when I was in high school, which was a very long time ago. But I'm also curious, what motivated this particular presentation, because I see a lot of policy breaks. I think most of our policies are in good shape, and you brought up the one that you'd like to change. But and I think there might be something in the legislature about high school graduation requirements this year too. So I'm just curious.
I requested it at one of the board meetings for possible future agenda items. I had requested it at a board meeting. Yeah, based on what was happening in the legislature and what was happening in the State Board of Education. Because there's a lot of movement happening in both those entities right now. And high school and beyond plan is either in the periphery or dead center in the middle of it.
I'm really intrigued in it because across the state and in other states, we're seeing career pathways. So when it's time to, you're talking about education as a whole. So you're including higher education, technical colleges, and even those that are ready to start work immediately after, really creating those pathways. And it starts, like they're saying, with a lot of what we're seeing is it's actually starting in the middle school and then beyond. And they're really, what I'm seeing is a lot of intentional design to say, all of you need to be working together. So it's the K-12 systems working with the technical and community colleges as well as the universities to make sure that there are seamless pathways created and intentionality and how that's built. So I'm thrilled and excited to see how this continues to evolve. So.
Can I just add one thing? It's a kind of a fun celebration. We're working with Central to host an entrepreneurial competition coming up within the next, I think, 6 weeks or so. And I'll get Ginger the dates and stuff, but we're working on that exact thing that you're talking about. And there's some really key faculty at Central that have really done a really good job of reaching out. And the president has partnered with us on certain things. So we're working on those pieces as well, but that's just a shout out to Central as well for partnering with us on the new upcoming entrepreneurial competition. So.
Awesome, thank you. So Ginger, I think we cover B, C, and D. Okay, so now we're gonna go back to you and we're gonna go back up to A. Again, thank you.
Thank you, Bo and Huey, appreciate it. So while Matt pulls up my superintendent update, just want to celebrate again January as being the National School Board Month. And brings the certificates that I gave you guys are just a small memento of just how much I know I personally appreciate each of you and your leadership. And on my first slide, I have a quote that's like one of my quotes that just always resonates with me from Margaret Mead, where it says, "Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has." And you know, your work as a school board, with me, with our district, you are making a positive impact on our students. And when we make a positive impact with our students and our community, we are working together to change the world for better. So just want to thank you guys, and just want to celebrate the National School Board Month, because you guys put in a lot of hours as volunteers, and just want to personally thank you for that. So just touching on a few other things here. We know levies are on the ballot. It's just informational. I would say you might get this information out if you haven't already opened up your ballot. The EP on levy is on one side and people have to turn it over because the tech levy is on the back side. So just really want to point that out. I'll probably put something on a blackboard just as kind of a reminder. Somebody might just look at the front side and decide that they want to vote there and not flip it over. But as we know, the ballots are due February 8th, and if they're not new taxes, the replacement of the levies expiring December 2022. And it's a renewal again of expiring tax. It provides local funding for items like safety, extracurricular activities, staffing, technology. It's not funded or fully funded by the state, and levies support all of our Ellensburg students. And I've been able to give several different informational sessions to different groups like I do normally to provide information out for folks. So use of ESSER funds, just a reminder, there have been some questions about that, why you need a levy when you just got federal money from ESSER. And ESSER is one-time money that was initially provided to help support and still is provided to provide support for masks, gloves, hand sanitizers. And here's a list again of what we have spent our ESSER funds on so far. Temporary staffing, for mental health, paraeducators, family liaisons, a math science teacher at Morgan Middle School, behavior tech, special education recovery services. I mentioned the personal protection equipment, software, online platforms like Edgenuity. We do have about 50, 60 students that wanted to do just online learning, and we're using ESSER funds to help support that. We did need to buy some additional science kits to help provide with this social distancing. Solution Tree, 3-year professional development, when teachers come together in professional learning communities in small groups. They are looking at data and helping to address the learning loss. And that is the specific language in ESSER. We would say promoting academic growth for all of our students. Summer school, winter school for the high school. Time for students to make up their credits as well as get more support, especially with math and literacy. This summer, Shannon Seltzer at the elementary got to do gardening with the students, so we try to make it all hands-on for the students too in the summer. And then recently we added Hanover Research Equity and Belonging Survey that we're going to do. We'll be sending that out to all parents and staff and high school students. And I'm planning right now on doing that in February or early March. And just a reminder, if our stakeholders have suggestions on that they'd like us to consider for the use of ESSER funds, they just need to send me an email or give me a call and share those ideas with me.
Teacher, the ESSER funds were used to fund the additional classrooms at Ida.
Yes.
I thought that was bond money, but we didn't have bond money.
Right, it wasn't originally in the bond, and that's why I'm really excited that and that's, I'm glad you're bringing that up, Meg, because it's not like that money's just sitting in our account. We literally have to ask for permission, especially if we're going to use it toward any kind of a bond project. We had to share with them why we needed the extra space, and really with the social distancing and the class size and stuff and the wind time that we were doing, where we were putting kids in small groups, we really did need that additional space for our Lincoln students. And so we're just so thankful that OSPI granted us that permission because it fell in the guidelines. And really smart on our part, because having to put those classrooms in later would cost so much more than what they do right now, especially with Garfield here. So instead of it being, what was it, 440 was I think the original capacity of IDA. With those added classrooms, I think we can go up to close to 500, which we'll probably need, because when we looked at our demographic data, that's where the growth is going to be, is in that IDA boundary, which we'll see here in just a minute. Just a quick update on the attendance zone. I'll let you guys can kind of read through this on your own, but basically what we talked about was we had established the criteria from the previous meeting, and then we talked about timelines. And I think for this year, the timeline will be a little bit later for when we can actually have parents apply to apply for potential transfer if they want to go to school outside of their attendance zone. But then we said the next year we'd like it for it to be sooner, like they said, parents would be able to sign up for it it sooner. We're still kind of working through those details. Some of the other details, we thought maybe we would need to move kindergarten registration up. If parents make it once, if they do get accepted with the choice or transfer, that they would have to really make a commitment. They'd have to be there for the whole year. We're thinking we know that they have to provide their own transportation. And then when students go on a wait list, they still get filtered through the same criteria so that we are consistent with how we're looking at students that want to apply outside of their designated attendance zone. If there's an open seat, it doesn't mean again that they just automatically get it. They have to filter through that process. Decisions are based on space, administrative decisions. And if a decision is made, if it's final, there was a question of, well, would there be an appeal process? And we're still looking at that. And we also said we want to grandfather in the people who are already out of district, they're part of our district, we grandfather them in. They still would have to provide their own transportation because most of them already do, but we definitely would grandfather them into the same, school where they're at. And again, we'll post these so that you have it, but some of the non-negotiables, and I shared this last time, children only accepted at school outside of their attendance zone at their space and their grade level at that school. Principals would use a consistent criteria across the districts. And we're in the process of finalizing that timeline. We are going to meet again probably next week or early the following week. Potential transfer, again, the criteria. First, we would look at children of staff members. Second, siblings of students who are in life skills or autism programs. Third would be any kind of hardship. And we talked about needing to maybe dig just a little deeper in what the hardship would entail. And we've said we might even just have some boxes for them to check off for hardships so that it's a little bit more consistent. And we're also in the process of looking at some forms that were given to us from other districts that have requests for transfer and seeing what their process is compared now to what the values are from the committee. Out of district who are currently again attending are guaranteed a spot. We don't want to lose our students there. And so that, and it's basically the same. So if you go through all of that criteria, the last one is the 5th grade, and if there's slots, current 4th graders who want to stay at their school, they can apply, but again, their parents have to transform, provide transportation, and then the pool of other in-districts that might be left after you go through that. And I think the overall committee favored having more of a lottery process for that rather than a first come, first serve. There are a few people that wanted to say, well, whoever's first on the list, but then it seemed like there were more people on the committee that said they just prefer at that point to just draw names for who would get the slots after you run them through the criteria. And then last, this is, go to the next slide, next one. So this is just a really rough picture. It's kind of hard to see the exact streets. We're still working on getting a high resolution, but you can see it's pretty similar to. And this was just my attempt to do a snippet to put on here just to give us a rough idea. It's very similar to this drafting boundaries that I put out in my June superintendent update. I put it out a couple of other times. Well, the part that we changed is we go up and we look at up by Ida, between Ida and Valley View. We just kind of brought it in a little bit to at the bottom to include by moving it over. We were able to scoop in or have about 30 to 50 kids move into Valley View instead of keeping it Ida because we know that Ida is going to be where we have the most growth. I just got the demographic data back today. By doing that shift, it doesn't change overall demographics much, but it was pretty well distributed to begin with. So, the person from Edgelog, Andy went through it, and it was a very systemic way of figuring these out and looking at overall students. And so I think we came to a pretty good consensus as a committee that we felt like we'd be able to come forward with to assess the values. but we'll get more specific information out to parents within the next couple of weeks. Probably toward the end of this February, we'll be ready to be able to send that information out to parents. Jonathan or Meg, do you guys want to add anything to that?
Yeah, we talked a lot about communication with parents as we go through this final result, give them plenty of time, but also things like childcare, because the taking zones will change, so we're gonna make sure to let them know we have the after school programs and what we're doing there, so if you're not gonna be transported from this school to across town or over there to a daycare, we're providing options at the schools, so.
I'm going to talk to Right at School and see if we can't expand that program to all schools. And with principals too, we've been working on what could the tier schedule look like, and they're kind of in favor right now of moving up all the times by about 15 minutes, which will bring to the attendance zone. And there's a real interest in widening the gap between Ida and Mount Stewart, which I think we need to do just to make that traffic flow. Another component. But
Just to clarify, no report on the, and Meg has submitted her letter, and I know that we have Leslie that's been out. Is there any update
yes.
where we are with that? The board?
Yes, I was going to say for board calendar, but I can do that right now. So yes, with the help of Gemma has been great. We're kind of looking at it together. We are ready actually to put it live tomorrow. We are using the same form that we did for when we had the applications when Jonathan came on board. And we are looking at, if we post it tomorrow, we will have it close on February 11th. And then thinking that, and wanted to ask you guys if we could move the time up to 4 for our study session on February 23rd. We could do the interviews. I mean, we already all have that blocked out on the calendar rather than trying to find another time. We could use that for the study session. If we moved it back at 4, that would give us 2 full hours if we needed it to do the interviews, to give us a chance to go into executive, and then potentially at that meeting be able to let folks know who the new board member is, because then that following week is when it's Meg's last board meeting on March 9th. And so it seemed like that timing would fit pretty well. So that's kind of the overall plan. Want to make sure you guys were good with it before we went live with the dates.
Yeah, thank you for that additional update.
Thank you for asking.
You bet. All right, we have gone through a lot, and what's great is we have nothing in business and nothing in policy, right? 'Cause this meeting has already been long. So that leads us right into board reports. So first off, do we have, well, I'm looking at early learning. I don't think we've done an early learning report. Have no students here, so no student report. How about teaching and learning, Tasha?
There's a teaching and learning report, and there's a doc that will be attached probably to the agenda, because everything I'm sharing is hyperlinked. So it's just informational. So the Washington State Board of Education met on January 19th and January 20th. They inducted their new board members, and I thought it was interesting that the Teacher of the Year of 2021, Brooke Brown, is a new Board of Education member, and she's the one who spoke at WASDA. And so that was a really exciting voice to think about having at the State Board of Education. I spoke about graduation requirements. The Mastery-Based Learning Work Group they formally submitted the Washington profile of a graduate to this legislative group. They're starting to work on recommendations of changing the high school diploma and the high school pathway in order to, meet the profile of a graduate. That is moving rapidly. I think there's two bills right now from the Senate, which I didn't have time to pull tonight, so I apologize. They are planning to formalize their draft recommendations this summer for changing that high school experience and take that to the legislature 2023. So they're moving, I think, pretty quickly, but they're going to go out to schools this spring in order to talk to people. And I've already put in Ellensburg as please come and visit us. We're the center of the state. We've got great facilities, so let's see if they come. On January 20th, OSPI.
What did you say about Ellensburg? They have.
No, I submitted our name for a possible location to gather information. On January 20th, the State Board of Education and OSPI funded 18 local schools, 18 state schools to support the mastery-based learning. That budget was $5 million to be spent out. And the goal of that is for these schools to fully move their school experience to mastery-based, standards-based, competency-based learning. Of note that was interesting to that is that in our area, Moses Lake School District got that money, Quincy School District, and West Valley School District. And those school districts have stated that they will be moving to mastery-based learning in the next year. Yes. There is a graphic that is on the doc that will be linked. It is the 2022 legislative platform for the State Board of Education. They are putting a lot of muscle behind graduation pathways, widening dual credit, strengthening elementary science, and they just say statewide mastery-based learning. So unsure of exactly what that means. They also want to advance ethnic studies as a requirement for graduation and put money and system-wide plans behind a diversified education workforce. And we are seeing these bills, I think, move forward. I'm interested to hear Meg's report about supporting staffing, especially nursing, counseling, safety staffing. I thought it'd be interesting to share with you. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
With the ethnic studies, is that fit into a regular class, or they would change the curriculum, or it would be separate, like part of that elective?
It sounds like it would be a required class, like
Oh, separate, so part of the elective. Well, it would take credit.
something in there, right? That's the big question. With the 24 credit high school, what is this? What are they looking at, and what system-wide changes do we have to do to do that? Because that would be really hard for our district to all of a sudden have another requirement for our students. Additionally, on the document, you're going to see a new tool that was released today, the Edu Recovery Hub. It's put together by, did I put them on here? The Center on Reinventing Public Education, the Edunomics Lab at Georgetown University, and the Collaborative for Student Success group. And they are tracking nationwide the efforts to identify innovative education practices that are being tied to how districts and how states are spending federal money. And so on that page, which was just released today, they're following state mandates, trying to highlight innovative ideas, how our schools reimagining, reemerging after COVID. It'll be interesting to see where that goes out, but it seems to be a really great, quick news source for anyone who's wondering what's happening. And as a personal note, I put my name in the ring to put forward for that WASDA leadership course that happens every 2 years. And so I was selected. So I get to spend a year with 8, there's 19 of us total, school board directors getting together to learn about what's happening in their districts and how to lead through change. So that starts February 10th. And that's my report.
Thanks for that report, and I'm thrilled that you will be a part of that. I think that'll be good for us as a board, our district, and I hope it'll be a great experience for you as well. So thank you. All right. Meg, do you have a legislative
Of sorts, yes, that was a tough act to follow. I was on acting like a lame duck already, and if you want the new person to start on March 9th, that's okay with me. Although I was mistaken when I said that I was before the legislative session was over, because it ends March 10th unless they extend it. So I'm really not, but anyway, my 2 cents worth is that it's not worth testifying during the week on the Hill next week. The topics that is to say the students, which is what I had in mind, the topics that we are limited to, we are limited to topics that are on WAS's list of legislative priorities, and I don't think that once students are particularly motivated to talk about or would have stories about the famous stories they always want. Though I do think it's great that Chloe wants to attend the thing on Sunday, and I guess she signed up. And I do have the impression, as I say, I haven't seen any specific bill in the legislature, but I have the impression that there may be opportunities for the students to testify on subjects that would be of interest to them, like what we heard about at Such Length today, and then Master Digits Learning. So I'm going to be keeping my eyes open for that. Let's see. I did not see anything about the enrollment bill, where the enrollment bill was that happened on that yet. Trying to get, having our funding depend on past enrollment, not current. But I'll be keeping an eye on that as well. And I guess that's my report. I did register on a bill about a bill banning critical race theory, but more specifically, more generally, equity instruction. Wonderful vote. See where every vote counts, right?
Can you all make sure that you send me those reports so I can attach them to the agenda, please?
So if you heard that, Matt would like to ask Tasha and Meg if you have a report that's direct list the briefing of that, if you could send that to Matt so he can attach it to the agenda. Listen,
Well, and I would ask him again that all the presentations be added to the agenda.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. All right, board, I do not have a report, so that will lead us into public comment. So Matt, if you can help us get set up for public comment. It looks like we do have a few people on Zoom. Individuals wishing to be heard tonight by the board will add their names to the document in the Zoom chat box. Or individuals will be recognized within the Zoom by using the icon or emoji to show they are raising their hand. Once the chair calls on an individual, they will identify themselves by stating their name and address for the record. Individuals will proceed to make comments within the 3-minute time limit. In order to provide equal opportunity for comments, an individual's microphone will be turned off at the 3-minute time limit. The chair may interrupt or terminate an individual statement when it's too lengthy, personally directed, abusive, obscene, or irrelevant. The board as a whole has a final decision in determining the appropriateness of such rulings. In accordance to the Open Public Meetings Act 4230, agendas and topics must be set in advance of the meeting. Board members will not respond to public comment during the meeting. Additionally, comments may be submitted to the board at board@esd401.org. Matt, are we ready to open public comment?
Yes, we are.
All right.
Currently, there is, I have I have no one signed up currently for it. So would you like me to set a timer?
Yes, go ahead and set a timer. We'll just 20 seconds. So those of you on Zoom, again, it's really important. Make sure you're raising the emoji or raise your hand. We want to make sure we're not missing you. If there's anyone there that was hoping for public comment.
How long do you want the timer?
Just 20 seconds, yeah. All right, it doesn't appear we have anyone for public comment, so I will now, public comment is now closed. Board, that leads us to proposed items for future consideration. I don't think we met, or go ahead.
I'm gonna say, I would normally talk about a levy, but it'd be too soon. Oh, yeah. Well, no, right?
Yeah.
So, is that what it's in an executive session?
Yeah.
will definitely.
So that'll definitely be a potential agenda item, for sure. So we need to let me, yes, thank you, Jonathan, for that. Any other future, anything else to propose for future consideration? No? Okay. Do we have an executive session? We do. Ginger, how long do you think that will meet? 25 minutes, okay. So we will adjourn to executive session.
What do you think, 20 minutes or 15? Oh, you said it was-
Oh, 15,
Sorry.
all right, 15 minutes. All right, so we will return, it is now 7:47. We will return at 8:02. All right, we are now adjourning the executive session. Thank you. All right. Well, and Matt, I don't think we actually said what we're going into executive session for, if that was for. Bargaining, correct? Yep, negotiations, okay. That takes us to board calendar. Anything for board calendar? Clarifications and next steps. There. We have signing, I signed a bunch of documents, Matt, is there, or do you have anything else? Nope, okay, so no signing tonight. That takes us to adjournment. I need a motion and a second. Next, so moved. Is there, can I get a second just for Matt? For a second. All right, we have Mike for a second. This is now. Board meeting is now adjourned. Have a good evening.